Okay.
Well, welcome everyone. Today we'll continue on with our Quran reading sessions. And last time we did Surah Fatiha, so this time we'll continue on with a short surah, but a very central surah, Surah Ikhlas. I'll share my screen. Uh, so some of you may know, Ikhlas is one of the only two surahs in the Quran which is not named after a word in the surah. Ikhlas means sincerity. So it's more about the topic of the surah. If you were to guess the other surah that's not named like that, any thoughts?
Fatiha?
Fatiha, yeah.
Got it.
Fatiha is the only other surah that's not named with a word from the surah. All the rest have like some kind of like they just take a word and run with it. So yeah, so we'll be reading through this. It's a short surah as you see, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in it with regards to uh, maybe some discussion about pronouns, maybe some discussion about gender in the like grammatical gender, and some interesting things with verbs, with some verb tenses that we may want to look into a little bit more. But before we start, I thought we'd just jump back a little bit to Surah Fatiha. Would anyone want to like review the recitation of Surah Fatiha? Last time we read through it. Would anyone want to just read through again?
Actually, can I ask for something? Because this is going to be like a recorded lesson. If you go to Quran.com and then you go to the surah, it doesn't show you this particular view. How do you get to this view?
Okay. Yeah, so
That's a good one to have.
definitely. So as for this view, so there's up in the corner, there's a settings bar. And in order to get this view, so under settings, there are a number of different like Quran fonts. Last time what we did is compare between what they put here as the Indo-Pak font. It's actually a more like Persianate, Persianate Turkish Indo-Pak font. And then the Uthmani font, which we see a lot in Qurans that are published in the Arab world. So you have these different options. You can do Uthmani font, Indo-Pak font. There's also a tajweed thing, but we'll talk about that when we get to the specific times. And then here, word by word, you have the option of putting this translation, which puts the translation underneath, and you can do the transliteration as well, right here. So that puts this transliteration underneath. So that really helps out in reading. And there's a number of other options with regards to the translation that you can choose in Quran.com. So I'll open it here. Here is the Indo-Pak font, and let me just close. And then also I have it set for the Uthmani font, which is the most common like font that's used in like in the Arab world, and we can compare the two. So any questions there, Sarah?
No, sounds good to me.
Okay, awesome. Now if we go through Fatiha, would anyone want to read through Fatiha? Just review what we did last time.
I mean, I think it might be good for some folks, and I never mind a review.
Any takers or?
Honestly, I was pretty, I think I told you I was pretty lost last time. I felt like we were doing I shouldn't say I was doing really well in the class before. And then by about a third of the way into the last class, I was completely lost. And I haven't had a chance to go back and review it. So to read this, no, I would have no idea how to read the actual script instead of just looking at the English words and doing it from memory.
No worries. We could like if you're feeling that way this time, do let us know, and and we'll like I can slow down a little bit.
Yeah. Also, just as a suggestion, because like a very traditional way is to do it orally. I mean, reading it is good, and in a sense, that's the purpose of the class, to read from the text. But in its initial form, it was not written; it was oral. And if you're a beginner, what sometimes works is just to hear a short part and then try to repeat it. So like somebody would say Bismillah, and then you would say Bismillah, and then Bismillahir Rahman. You might say Bismillahir Rahman, Bismillahir Rahman Rahim, and then you could repeat Bismillahir Rahman Rahim, and that might be enough for you. That it's sort of like you're not expected to read the whole thing. And there's some really good ones on YouTube that are actually like I think they're usually like South Asian teachers working with little kids where you hear the kids doing it in the background, and they'll do that. They'll break it into like a little part and the kids will say it, and then they make the part a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and it's oral, So I mean, you do probably want to learn the script and to read and write and to, to read from the written script, but that's not the only way to do it, is what I'm saying.
Well, what I can do is just read. I can just hover my cursor over the words and read it. And then if anyone wants to recite after me, that's cool. So I'll read it here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. All right. I did want to, before we go on, I did want to raise a point. Shaheen, you had asked last time about the word for deen. Like, doesn't deen mean religion? And here it means judgment or repayment. It seems like it has both meanings, and maybe there's a theoretical connection between it, but you will see when you do come across the word deen, you can recognize that it may have, at sometimes it may mean judgment, at sometimes it may mean repayment, and then sometimes it may mean custom or a religion in a sense. So it's not the first time that one word can have like different meanings, and they may be all related in some way. Also, in here, we see the word malik. Malik is what we call an active participle. It is from the verb malaka, to own. So malik, when you have verbs structure, like from a verb, if you have the I kind of like a structure of the verb, it makes it the active participle, the one who's doing it. So malik is the one who owns. There are other active participles that you'll come across, like kataba means to write, he has written. Katib is one who writes, right? Abada is to worship or serve. Abid is one who's the one who serves. So there's a lot of different options. Like when you see that fa'il form, that means the active participle. Any other words that you come across in that structure that comes to mind?
Nasir, Sajid.
So Nasir, one who helps or supports.
Yeah.
Hamid. It's a really, I feel like it's a really common structure for names. Like often you'll hear.
Yeah. Like Hamid, one who praises. So you get names like that.
Qari is one who recites it, like Quran is the recitation. Yaqra is to read, but Qari is a reciter of the Quran.
Yeah. And before we get, so last time I was like debating as to whether to go into it, but then Samantha brought it up that about talking about different readings of the Quran. There are multiple readings of the Quran. One of the most beautiful things about the Quran is that from the beginning, there was some variation as to how the Quran was read, with some diversity. And we see that in the traditions, even at the Prophet's time. And so, not to confuse you too much, but sometimes you will hear the Quran recited slightly differently. Here is one of the locations where you might hear the Quran recited differently. Here you see the word Malik with this dagger aleph, which indicates a long vowel, Malik. Some people, well, I personally recite in both Hafs and Warsh, two different recitations. And when I recite in Warsh, I recite Malik, a short vowel here, Malik. Now Malik means king. Malik means owner, it's the active participle, the owner of the Day of Judgment. Malik means the ruler or the king of the Day of Judgment. And both of those readings conform with the skeletal text of the Quran. The haraka, the different signs change slightly. But as you see, the word, both Malik and Malik would be would be allowed in this structure if you just change this like this voweling. So
Adnan, isn't Malak angel?
Malak Malak is angel.
But it
But
has the same root.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same root. So it can be it's interesting because Malak seems to come from Hebrew, where Malaka, like that root seems to be used for a messenger. And thus you get this the messengers of God as like the spiritual messengers of God as these angels. So yeah, sometimes the roots can be a little confusing and may have like multiple meanings. So from there you get malaika. But yeah, it can be a little confusing there. Any questions there? So as far as the different recitations of the Quran, the majority reading of the Quran in today's world is the one of Hafs from Asim. Asim was a reciter in Kufa. It's become the most popular one across the Muslim world. So like 99% of the books, or like the majority of the Qurans that you pick up will be of the reading of Hafs from Asim. And there's a good reason maybe for why Hafs became so popular. Historically, Kufa was a big center of the Muslim world. There is some thought that the reading of Hafs from Asim descends from the reading of Ali, and thus it may have that closeness to the Prophet. So those may have been certain reasons why Hafs became more popular. In the West Africa, however, you might hear the reading of Warsh from Nafi. And that's also a very popular, a very strongly attested reading. Nafi was one of the readers of Medina. And so there's that closeness to the tradition associated with that as well. Personally, I like reciting in both of those traditions. So I'll point it out where they may differ. Malik is the main place where it differs in Surah Fatiha, whether Maliki Yawmiddin in Hafs or Maliki Yawmiddin. And so if that stands out, if you notice that, that's where it comes from. All right. Any questions there?
Harun asks, do you ever get confused between the two?
Sometimes, but I with practice in my Quran text, I mark out like this word is different between the two readings. So I try to do my best to know where the differences lie.
Right.
Now, other readings exist, and most of them are like have these stylistic differences. One of the most like unique stylistic differences is the reading of Hamza as Zayat, the olive oiler. In this verse, for instance, he would read it, Zirat al-ladina an'amta alayhum, ghayr al-maghdubi alayhum, wala dhalin. So he makes this a little Z sound, Zirat al-ladina an'amta alayhum, with a, and it doesn't make any difference in the meaning. It just sounds very different. But Hamza is definitely a very unique one.
I'm sorry. Could you Hamza was like from one of the reading schools? Like who's the Hamza you're referring to?
Hamza is one of the canonical readers. There are, it's the Muslim world is like lists about like 10 individuals who are canonical readers. So Asim, Asim from whom Hafs reads, is one of them. Warsh reads from Nafi is another one. And then Hamza is one of the readers also from Kufa. And there's like 7 others who are well known. So and they all have slightly different styles. Slightly different styles. Ibn Kathir of Mecca would read this, Sirat al-ladina anamta alayhimu, ghayr al-maghdubi alayhimu, wala dhalin. So they're just slightly different styles, doesn't make a change in the meaning of the text. And when they do have changes of the meaning, because of slight differences of words, it's a very slight thing. So it's just good to know that and to recognize the beauty of the Islamic tradition that sort of allows for these multiplicities to exist. Any questions there? All right, I just throw that in there just so that we're like very comprehensive. But we'll go back to Surah Ikhlas, all right? So back to Surah Ikhlas. Let's start reading, okay? So we started with Bismillah. We had read that from Fatiha. Now, as we had discussed last time, Bismillah is often taken as the first verse of Surah Fatiha. It's not explicitly taken as the first verse of other chapters, even though it stands in front of them. So here you don't have a, in Quran.com, it just puts it up here. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay. And then we'll start to read. Again, if anything is confusing, slow me down and we can touch upon it. Sarah?
One of the questions I've had is why in the Bismillah part, why they have such a long join between the characters. I've seen that pretty often.
Yeah.
I wondered, is that like stylistic thing or actually has a meaning?
Yeah, why is this tradition to have this long long line after meme? I don't know. It seems like it's tradition and it's like a artistic tradition that has built up that has a long history of like lengthening the scene. You'll see that in a lot of manuscripts, say the long scene, but it seems like largely an artistic thing.
Calligraphy?
I just asked that question to another person actually just yesterday, and she was saying it means that you're supposed to hold the sound for 5 seconds as you're saying it. So is that not right, or?
Not pretty like the length of this scene is, it's more of a artistic thing, you know.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll see it, you can write it short, like in Surah Fatiha. Let me show you, like what we saw in Surah Fatiha, just a moment. See, here it's just a very short like connection. But historically, like for some reason, it's been a tradition to lengthen scenes in calligraphy.
Yeah.
So sometimes you see that.
Also
That's interesting.
in handwriting, I don't think they do that here, but in like script or handwriting, people often won't write the little teeth, the 3 little things that indicate that
Yeah.
it's an S. They'll just write a longer line, which is kind of shorthand for meaning it's a scene, you know. But
Yeah,
I think in
see
this
that?
case, it's just stylistic. It's beautiful. It's, you know, it doesn't correspond to how long you hold it, because I've never heard anybody say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. You don't usually
Right,
hear that.
right, for sure.
Actually, they make the S like that because of the a little bit curvy to give you this inspiration of, you know, the shape of the dome in the mosque. So to set you in this mood a little bit, because this is the opening of every Quranic chapter. So this is a calligraphy thing. Yeah, it's just artistic.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, to give you the mood of the dome.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you will see it in calligraphy, even without, as you said, Kevin, it's just a long like curve without even the teeth, and you're like, where's the S sound? where's the C? It just turns into a long line. So calligraphy can be something else. All right, so we'll read this first. What's this letter? Off, right? And then here, this vowel, U. This is a U.
Dhamma?
Dhamma. And then so it's a U. And then what's this vowel? That's a lam. And this is a stop on it. So qul. And qul is a command verb from the root of qawala, to mean to say. So it's commanding an individual, assumed to be the Prophet ﷺ, that to say this following statement. Assumed to be the Prophet, but also like every individual who reads it to say, right?
Right.
So the root is qawala, and you get verbs like qala, qultu, yaqul, naqul, and the noun qawl for saying. All of these like derive from the same verb. Okay. Now, let's get to this word. This is a
Ha.
And with this,
Dhamma.
Hu.
Hu.
And then
Wow.
this wa. And the line above
Kasra?
and the line above is a ahsan.
Is that kasra?
Fatha.
See, we
Fatha.
call it fatha.
Fatha.
It's funny because like I mix up my childhood Bengali and Arabic, so I call this a ukar and a akar.
Wow. That's hilarious, by the way.
But it makes more sense, ukar, akar, ikar, rather than whatever the terms are.
And
So
in
tell that to
Urdu,
an Arabic speaker. What is an ukar?
in Urdu, it is zabar and pesh.
Zabar and pesh, yeah.
Okay.
So kul huwa. Now huwa is a pronoun. It's considered a masculine pronoun, huwa. right?
What's the feminine?
What the feminine is hiya.
Here.
So
Okay.
this can bring up a conversation of how do we approach gender, grammatical gender in the Quran? Because from a theological perspective, we all agree that God has no gender. So how do we approach when the Quran uses the masculine pronoun in reference to God? Arabic has only two genders. Like in English, we have pronouns, we have he, she, and then we have the inanimate it, which is neuter. It doesn't have a gender. You use it, but you use it for inanimate objects. In Arabic, you just have huwa and hiya. Huwa for the masculine, and then hiya for the feminine. Now, like, how do we approach that with the theological position that God has no gender? Grammatically, Arabic does a lot of interesting things with grammatical gender. So it's like the gender of the words, the grammatical gender doesn't necessarily have to align with the biological gender of words. And huwa, and you see this often in languages with two grammatical genders, is that the default for a non-gendered term does become the masculine gender, like the masculine pronoun. But there are cases where that's very explicit, that even like huwa is clearly used as a non-gendered pronoun, as in, like, I'll show you this verse here. I pulled it up. Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha wa huwa mu'min. So it says, whoever does good, whether male or female, and huwa, and that individual. So it already clearly marks the individual as whether male or female. And then it uses huwa afterwards, like defaulting to that, because there is no neuter pronoun. It can use huwa in that case, but the huwa is clearly a non-gendered term there.
Mhm.
So the same way.
A question. So could huwa be used as they?
As they? Well, huwa is generally singular.
It could be used as the millennial they.
Well, I wouldn't say millennial. Like English,
It's more
does
Gen
have a
Z
long
at this
history.
point.
Gen Z, whatever it is, the young,
The younger the
the
people.
younger folks. All my kids, all their friends are they, and I just say that's cool. I'll say whatever you want. I just want to know how many people are coming over for dinner.
Well, English does have a long history of they as a non-gendered
Right.
pronoun, a non-gendered singular pronoun, but only when you're not like historically when you're not when like tell the person who comes that they should do this. That sounds very normal, right? And that is they used as a singular non-gendered pronoun. So English does have that history, and you can definitely that is very legitimate. But they has a sense of like plurality, whereas here, if you were to translate this word or this verse, man amila salihan, whoever does good from whether male or female, and they are a believer, you could do that in English, because we have that ability to use they in that context. So so in Arabic you would use the huwa because of the singularness of it. So that raises a question. So that's the use of huwa in the Arabic. How do we render that into English? I've seen a number of different approaches to try to, like, historically, here the translation is he is Allah, using the male pronoun in English. Some people may have issues with that. Some people like have some people have like used any approaches that you feel comfortable with.
You can just drop the he and say Allah is one. It will still mean the same thing.
Right. Actually, I'll show you this is Thomas Cleary's. I'm sorry, Thomas Cleary's translation of the Quran.
Okay.
And what stands out about this translation of the Quran is that throughout the entire Quran, Thomas Cleary never genders God. Like, he never uses a gender for God, or say he, or uses a he. He like would repeat God, the word God, or in the translation of this verse, it says it is God, the one. And that seems very very reasonable, like very natural in this context.
When was it done, Adnan? Thomas Cleary's?
Thomas Cleary's was, I actually really like it.
Is it recent?
It is recent. Let me see. 2004.
Okay.
2004. Check it out. It is a very beautiful translation. Yeah. So yeah, check that out. So
question about that. So huwa here isn't actually necessary, like grammatically, right? Like if you said
if you say Allahu Ahad,
yeah,
yeah,
like
I guess so. I guess so.
Say Allah is one.
So what I'm saying is that I feel like if you just translated it as say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, then you're I think again, I'm not like a Arabic expert, but from my limited knowledge, it seemed like huwa adds a degree of emphasis that that not having the huwa would not have. So it's like the pronoun is there for a reason, kind of. So I don't know. I guess it kind of goes back to the idea of should the translation sort of just communicate the meaning versus being more literal. But anyway, just wanted to comment that.
And there's
another question, Anand. Is there any verse in the Quran that says God has no gender?
Well, we infer it by God, the Quran explicitly say God created male and female. The inference is that that if God created male and female, that God is above gender.
Okay. All
right. Those issues, that explicit issue may not have come up in particular, that discussion. But I think traditionally, in the Islamic tradition, that's been the understanding. But yeah,
I have a side note. Yeah, just replying to Harun, because the reason of the whole chapter, Ikhlas Harun, was all of it as an answer, as an immediate answer for the kafirin, the infidels. They came around the Prophet and they told him, hey, we want to know Allah came from where? Show us he descended from what? So then the huwa and qul came immediately as oh Muhammad, tell them that he, or it is God, Allah, the one, and to the rest of the. So it's not just emphasizing, he's answering. The whole chapter is answering immediately to a direct question. So it makes so much sense why the pronoun came here.
Yeah, and a lot of in sometimes you'll find the pronouns and the things in Arabic have a certain emphasis, and sometimes there you see the pronoun, and sometimes you don't see the pronoun. In one verse you see wahum bil akhirati kafirun. In another verse you see wahum bil akhirati hum kafirun. And then you're like, oh, that's a slight different emphasis. And a lot of that can be lost in translation with regards to how do you render that.
Yeah,
there's
levels of
the original
emphasis.
language.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a maybe a change in emphasis in the original language, and then maybe English doesn't have those ways of expressing those emphasis. So that's the art and artistry of translations.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we say Qul huwa, and then here's the image for, we've discussed this before, Allah. So Alif, Lam, and then the Lam, and then the Ha, the Lam having the doubling because it's merging these two Lams with the lengthened vowel, Allah, and then Ha, and then U, Allahu. And remember, it's U because it's a nominative case that you use for subjects and such. Qul huwallahu. Okay? And then here you have Alif with a the Ha. What is this? Ha with a Alif and Dal. And then here you see this sign that we hadn't seen in Surah Fatiha. What is this? Up here?
69.
The 69, the U with a nunation.
The dun.
Ahadun, right? Ahadun. Ahadun. So often so we talked about words being definite if they have the al. And then after a word that has the, if the subject is definite, the predicate, the descriptor of the sentence can be in this indefinite form. And the indefinite form is marked by a word having a nunation at the end, or the end sound. That's marked by, as you see here, the this symbol, or it has a double line above or below. And that's a indefinite marker. Okay. So in Arabic, you don't have to, it's called a zero copyright. You don't have to put the word be in a sentence. You can say, you don't have to say, Qul huwallahu yakunu ahad. You like, God is, you don't have to explicitly say the word is. But a sentence can be structured by having a word like Allah, which is in the definite case, and then followed by a word in the indefinite case, like Allahu Kabirun, God is great, or Allahu Rahimun, God is compassionate. The predicate becomes in that indefinite case. Marie, you had a question?
Yes, I'm sorry, this is going back to extreme basic, but I've never understood the third section there, the the Allah part. I see the alif. I can't identify the letters in my alphabet in my book anywhere. That little thing that looks like a C, like I don't see that as any of the letters. I can't, like all the other letters in here, I see them in my alphabet, and those I can't see them. So I don't know if there's a way you can identify what's going on. I get the but I don't get the L and the H. Yeah.
You see this is an alif, right?
I totally got the alif.
Okay. And then this is
Lam.
It's lam?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a lam.
It's
It doesn't look anything like the lam in my alphabet.
So
this is a lam when it's connected afterward. It's just a line. Now it's lam is a long line. Here it can extend a little higher than this in this drawing. If we look at the Uthmani script.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So Qul huwa, and then the alif has this marker here in the Arabic script that means ignore it, because it connects with the vowel from before. And then here you see the lam here as well.
If you look at the lam, that is the beginning of the L.
So lam at the end of a word, like has this like loop at the end, and then when it's at the beginning of a word, it connects to the next letter.
Okay. Okay. And then that little thing at the end that looks like a tiny C. Yeah, I don't see that anywhere in the alphabet. I'm just so confused.
Yeah, let me get a list of the Arabic alphabet.
I added one in the chat thread as well, but you should probably find one.
Yeah,
but the way I can remember it is like the whole concept of like a liaison and cursive in English. Like an A looks different if it's in the middle of the word versus if it's in the beginning versus the end, because it's connecting to the letter before it. Yeah. And so that's basically how I remember it. Like certain letters just don't touch when they're being connected in the middle.
There's lam.
Let's look at this lam here. So lam, when it's connected, lam alone has this loop at the bottom. When it's connected, it connects right after.
Flat.
It turns flat. And lam in the middle, as you see in the word Allah, it's also flat. And at the end, it has the loop. Okay.
Okay. Now, so what is that little C?
So
like where is it in the alphabet?
This is the ha.
That's the ha. Yes.
Right? So yeah, it is. Ha is a confusing letter because it looks much more different between the different positions. At the beginning, it's this kind of. Oh, actually, this is.
It's at the extreme right. Is the ha in Allah? Yeah, that's the ha in Allah.
You see that? This is actually incorrect because this is the isolated position.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
And in the isolated position, it looks like a teardrop. Okay, it just looks like a little triangle teardrop. At the beginning, the ha looks like this loop. It's like you're drawing the teardrop and then you loop around and you connect it. And in the middle, ha has this position of like a loop, like a double loop around it. Now you'll see it in other formations like going down and up. It's like, it can be a complicated letter. And then finally, it's written as this loop at the end.
Okay, thank you so much. Now I get it. I've been so confused. Like the most basic important word, right? And it's just like it made no sense to me for like 3 years. So okay, thank you so much.
That's what we're here for. So here again, this is the alif, the lam in the initial position, the lam in the middle position, and then the ha, which is this loop right here. So Allahu. Okay. Remember last time we said that the vowel of Allah changes depending on the vowel that comes before. This is a little bit of advance. When we were reading Bismillah, I was pronouncing the la vowel as a an open sound. Bismillah, Bismillah. That's because the vowel before it was a e. So Bismillahi. When the vowel before it is a or a u, the vowel of Allah becomes more closed. It becomes ah. So instead of reading Qul huwallahu, you read Qul huwallahu. There's a slight difference. Do you get that? Do you hear that difference there? Not Qul huwallahu, but rather Qul huwallahu, because the vowel before it is a sound. Any questions there? That's a slight, like you only find that in the word Allah, that when it's preceded by an or a u, the L sound changes into that ah. The vowel after the L sound changes into that ah. So you say Qul huwallahu ahad. Ahad means one, right? But it's not but it's interesting because there's other words for one in the Arabic language. The other word is wahid, which comes from the same root. And if somebody were like, if this was the word wahid, it would make sense. Qul huwallahu wahid. Why is it ahad here? Yeah, it's ahad does come up in Arabic many times as a word that means one, but it's more in the case of if I were to say anyone, like ma ra'aytu ahadan, like I didn't see anyone. Or in ahadun min al mushrikina in Surah Tawbah, in ahadun min al mushrikina yastajaka, like if anyone from amongst the group does this. So it's interesting that we generally wouldn't use the word, like the word ahad is, some people would say it's like an interesting use of the word ahad here.
Could that be a function of 7th century Arabic, like classical Arabic, rather than contemporary Arabic?
Possibly, but yeah, possibly.
They still use ahad, like in the example that that Adnan said. I didn't see anybody. Ma ra'aytu ahad. It's in a negative sense sometimes, and there's an interesting. Yeah. One of the links I have, and I think I said it to the group, but Razi talks about the difference between ahad and wahed, and that wahed has a more, first, it's a counting number. You can say there's one thing, there's two things, there's three things, wahed, but you can't use ahad as a counting number. So he's kind of saying that wahed is more positive in the sense that the totality of all the positive attributes of Allah, and ahad emphasizes the negative divine attributes, that Allah is without body or substance, or it's sort of on his own in a sense. So that whole phrase Allahu Ahad kind of, and again, Allah, that word itself encompasses everything, but the Ahad is sort of like an aloneness at the same time. So the two kind of balance themselves out, if I'm explaining it right. But
yeah, it's complicated. I don't know exactly the particular, like, why the word choice was done. I have a hypothesis though also that maybe builds off of in Jewish tradition, the main prayer is the Shema.
The Shema.
What's the Shema? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad.
Yeah. In Hebrew, you do use the word Ahad as a counting number, and you would say, Shema Yisrael, Hear O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is Ahad. So it sort of echoes that biblical tradition there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's interesting if in the context that the prophet is being asked by a group of Jews to, who is this Allah you're talking about? I think that's, so in a sense, he's like echoing their tradition with this response.
Possibly. Now, yeah, so Qul huwallahu ahadun, right? This is a un. Now, when you're at the end of a verse, you drop that last vowel, right? So Qul huwallahu ahad, right? You don't say the un. Now, another aspect of tajweed is that when certain consonants, when you stop on them, you have to shake it a little bit. And dal is one of those consonants. It's called qalqala. It's like when you stop on the dal, the D sound, you have to make you don't just stop on it, you make a little like slight vowel after it. So qul huwallahu ahad, ahad, rather than ahad. So you'll hear that. I just like point it out so that you'll hear it. Qul huwallahu ahad. People will make that little like slight vowel, slight pseudo vowel after the when stopping on the dal. Qul huwallahu ahad. And you'll see that throughout the chapter because all of these, the whole chapter rhymes with this end on the dal. So you'll hear that throughout it. Okay.
Are there other alphabets that you kind of extend?
There's qalqala for certain consonants. Dal is one of them. Qaf is another one. Qaf is another one. Ba is another one.
Qutub jad. You can put them in the word qutub jad.
Yes, exactly. So ba is another one, and ba is another one, and jim is another one. So if you so those five, qutub jad, qaf, ba, jim, dal, and ba.
Can you stop on? Can you repeat that again, Adnan?
So qaf,
the qaf, okay.
Qaf, and then ta. No, this is the velarized ta, the one that looks like a little like B sound, loop B sound. That when you stop on it, you shake it. Ba, and then dal and jim.
And Sammy put them in the chat in Arabic. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Sammy. Yeah, so those are the letters that when you stop on it, like, are there examples that come to mind? You'll see that in Tabbat yada abi lahabi wa tab, ma agna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. You have that. It doesn't just stop on the vowel, it just has a sound on it. This is a little bit getting into the details of tajweed. Don't get confused about it. We'll take it slowly. We'll take it slowly. And
yeah, it's more advanced. It's more advanced.
Yeah. All right. Exactly. This pseudo vowel when you stop on the letters on it. So we'll continue on. Here again, what's this word?
Allah.
Allah. So here it starts off with the because here you see that the aleph doesn't have a vowel on it because it connects with the vowel before it. Here, because it is the beginning of a sentence, the Indo-Pak print marks out that you add the vowel at the end. So Allahu. In the Arabic print, you won't see that. The differences here is that you see Qul huwallahu. This is a mark. This little squiggly sign is a mark that there's a liaison, so you can read through it. And then ahad has the hamza on the top because it's a new vowel. Again, it's this 69 kind of rendering. And then here it also has a hamza, so you have to you have to know that if it's not the hamza, it's this squiggly sign indicating the liaison. So you have to know that if you're starting it on this letter, it has a sound that you build.
What is that sad like letter called?
I'm not sure what the name of this is.
That's Hamzat al-Wasl. Hamzat al-Wasl.
Wasl? Okay.
Yeah, wasl means to link things. So basically it means that if it stands on its own, if you're just starting to read there, then you would make the sound, the glottal stop. But if it's coming after a preceding word, the words join together and you use the vowel of the preceding word and you don't say the So for example, you would say wallah. You don't say wa Allah. You say wallah. So the wasl.
Here is qul huwallahu. You're connecting it from the vowel before, and this marks it out here. But here, because you're starting off the sentence, you have to put in that vowel, and that vowel in this case, when it's al, the definite marker it's an al.
So because you can connect ahad with Allah immediately. You can say qul wallahu ahadullahu samadul. You can keep continuing. So it makes sense like this.
And interestingly, some reciters do connect ahadun. How do you do that? Ahadun ends in a if you were to connect this and ignore this stop here,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Because ahadun ends in a consonant, the N sound, ahadun, and then there's no vowel to connect to the Allah.
Didn't you say ahadul?
What's that?
Didn't you say ahadul?
Yeah, but if you
What
connected
happens?
them, would you say ahadun Allah?
Yes.
No, ahadulillah.
Sort of like that.
Allah.
Well, what happens is that it's a dummy I sound.
Oh,
A
ahadun
dummy I sound. Ahadunillah.
ahadun
So you might hear that. Qul huwallahu ahadunillahu samad. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. But it's connecting from the ahadunillahu samad. So you just have to like when a consonant ends in a vowel, and then you have when a word ends in a consonant, and then you have this connection after it, you can connect it if you throw in that dummy E sound right there. Qul huwallahu ahadunillahu samad. And because it's an E sound, the lam takes on the lighter vowel. So you would say Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad if you're disconnecting it. But if you're connecting it, Qul huwallahu ahadunillahu samad. Just those slight differences because of that. But again,
how do you know whether if that for the Allah and the Hamzatul Wasl, how do you know that the default vowel would be in a kasra or I instead of an a? It doesn't indicate it there. I assume that's what you've learned and what you've heard, and that's the traditional way to do it. Ahadunillah. But how do you know that it's not written?
Well, you have to just know. You just have to know that. You just have to know that. And in the reading of Hafs, if there's a consonant and then a connection, it's a E sound.
Okay.
That is the dummy vowel, the connecting vowel that gets added there.
Got it.
It comes actually to a grammar, Kevin. It's called the lunar and the solar L in the Arabic. So when you return back to this grammar, the lunar and the solar, you can have some guide to know when I can connect, or where I say the A and L together, or where I not necessarily, and I keep continuing. This is the solar and the lunar Hamzatul Qata or Hamzatul Wasl, when I will pronounce it or when I just keep connect with it. This is the guide for the question you asked.
Okay.
The solar and the lunar, yeah.
So like the Shamsi and the Qamariya.
Yes, the Shamsi and the Qamariya.
So it's a bit complex, but the main, I hope I'm not like confusing like everyone with going into it, but we're making our progress, slowly. And if you have any questions, do stop me at any point. So Allahu, and then here you have the alif, lam, and then sad. So alif, lam is a definite marker, but you don't see anything on the alif because it connects with the vowel before, and you don't see anything on the lam because sad is one of those letters that we've discussed. And I think this is where, Sami, your point about the solar, it's like certain letters, the lam merges into those letters. And we've seen that in the past with as-sirat al-mustaqim or ar-Rahman, ar-Rahim. Here again, as-sad. So it connects into the sad. And because of that, you double up the sad with this shadda, and then you have the a sound on top. As-sa, and then here is a meme with the a sound. Sama, dal with the u sound. Samadu. It's the u sound here because it connects with the case of Allahu, which is also in the nominative. Allahu samad. Samad means here's an eternal absolute, the one who depends on nothing. Everything depends on God. So here the phrase is Allahu Samad, the eternal God, or the absolute God. Any questions there?
I'm wondering about Khattab's translation as the sustainer. I thought Rabb was sustainer rather than Samad.
Yeah, so Rabb is a sustainer. This translation is taking this term for Samad, which has a sense of like something for which everything depends on, but itself depends on nothing.
Is that sufficient?
Yes.
Self-sufficient. Yeah. Yeah. So this individual translates it sustainer needed by all. And there'll be different translations like that.
Just wanted to add a side note that this is the only surah in which the this attribute of God is mentioned as Samad.
Yeah.
Anywhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have to look into that. Why you don't see it anywhere except here.
I guess that is why both this surah and Fatiha are so central to an understanding of the Quran, and which is why they have names of their own other than other names, because they stand out.
It's like against the hollowness, Shaheen. Hollow. Everything is hollow.
Yes.
Consists of molecules except God Almighty. So it's almost against the everything that consists from molecules. Yeah, this is like solidness, pure solidness.
Yeah. Solidness or being impenetrable, not hollow.
Yes, that's the most closest meaning of As-Samad in Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
So like very like solid.
Yes, exactly. Which is a unique attribute to God, because everything else has molecules, even diamond, whatever. The solid is just metaphoric here, or not relatively, not for us. It looks solid, but it's not actually. It has molecules, except God Almighty.
Yeah, so wonderful. Again, we read Allahu Samad. So the vowel on sa becomes closed a little bit, sa. So it's rather than sa. Sa, Allahu Samad. And again, because it's the end of a word, you drop the last vowel, but because it's a dal, you sort of shake it a little bit. Allahu Samad. Okay?
Now, if one were to say Allahu al-Samad, it would still mean the same.
You could say that Allahu al-Samad. Yeah, it would still
God is the self-sufficient or the solid or whatever.
So in a sense, when you are saying Allahu Samad, you are saying al-Samad. There's just a pronunciation rule difference that you don't, with the sad, you don't say al. You don't say al-Samad. You say as-Samad, because the original word is Samad without the shadda on. It's just one sad. Samad would be the word in itself. But as-Samad, you double the length of the sad. So instead of Samad, it's as-Samad. And that doubling kind of brings in the L. The L is there in a sense. The L disappears, but it makes the next letter double, and that's the nature of the sun letters. The shams is the word sun, so ash-shams. But you would say al-qamar, the moon, because you don't double it. So the L is there in a sense,
but it's silent.
It's silent, and it doubles the following letter.
So it's a pronunciation rule rather than
exactly. It's a pronunciation rule.
Yeah.
Shaheen, do you know the meaning of your name?
I was told it has a meaning in Farsi and in Arabic.
In Arabic, it means the eagle. It's a special type of eagle, okay.
Oh, wow.
Like a falcon.
Not falcon, an eagle, yes.
Eagle, okay.
Yeah. Because in our poetry, we don't like falcons, actually, but we embrace the eagles.
Okay.
So Shaheen is a good eagle,
It's a good eagle.
Thank you.
Why don't you like falcons? I thought people hunted with falcons, and they were
no falcons because they wait. They don't rescue the people in the desert, so they come. They wait until you die, and they come and it's always a symbol.
That's a vulture.
That's a vulture.
Yeah.
Actually, we put it with the falcons. We never. Yeah, the falcons are so big in their size that the eagles are small and they are rescue and they detect water spots in the desert. So always is a good symbol in our poetry. But the falcons or the vultures, no, they wait until you die and they just soaring around in the sky. So always as a bad symbol.
What do you call the birds that the Bedouins train? They train these birds and they put them on their wrist and then they send them to hunt and bring back the prey.
Yeah, different types. There is the Shaheen and there is the Uqab. And there is Albaz. There is many names of different eagles in the Arabic language, almost maybe 300 different types. Yes.
It's like Asad or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But eagles is the most favorite for us. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Good to know. I'll go with eagles.
Oh, I have a question actually about the donation. So I noticed that you have that with in the first verse with ahadun, or it just gets I guess shortened to ahad, and you have that also in the last verse, but you don't have it in the ones in the middle. Are there any rules around when you have nunation versus not?
So nunation. So when you construct a sentence in Arabic, if you construct a simple sentence with like he is happy or God is one, the predicate is what we call what comes like so you have the subject, God is one, the predicate is one. That predicate is in the indefinite case, so is ahadun. Here in this word, there's not actually, it's not a sentence. it's not saying that God is the eternal. If it were to say that, it would be Allahu Samadun. It would use the nunation to have this expression of, if it was a sentence like that. If it were to say God is the eternal, you would say Allahu Samadun. What it's saying here is different. It says Allahu Samad. It's saying, so Samad is actually an adjective to Allah, and it's simply a phrase, the eternal God or the absolute God. It's not a sentence in that case. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yeah, so that means in the first one, because of the hua, that makes it into like, he is kind of making more of a sentence. It's not saying God the one, it's saying God is the one, where the is kind of silent.
Yeah, so because it's a indefinite here, this is structured as a sentence. He, God, is one, the eternal God.
Okay.
It's just a phrase of describing God, the eternal God, or the absolute God, or the solid God. But it's not saying it as a sentence. God is absolute. Because if it were to say that, it would use that nunation, Allahu Samadun, in that case.
What about the one after?
Yeah.
Is that a sentence?
So let's go. We could go into that. Kevin, you had a point?
I don't know if it's a point or more a question. I was wondering. Sarah. So I was wondering if the Allahu Samad goes as a sentence with the next ayah, lam yalid wa lam yulad.
Well, we'll read this. We'll read this then.
Okay.
So again, I
want to make a comment though. I thought it's like this gotta be very short because it's literally like 4 verses.
I know.
It's only like an hour on each verse.
I know. I'm sorry.
There's so much detail. I would just not even like imagine it. So it's been very educational. I'll just say that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, our goal is to, I don't want to overwhelm you, but it is nice to like get into the grammar so that you start to understand it, in like the detailed grammar and such. But yeah, if it's too much, do let me know.
if I could just comment something real quick. So my initial take on this would have been that so in Arabic there's a concept called badal, which is like substitution. Mm-hmm. So like Qul huwallahu ahad, like Allah is he is Allah. And I think all of these phrases, the next couple of phrases, are substitutions for Allah. So huwa, like he is Allah, so like huwa is the subject, Allah is the predicate. Qul huwallahu ahad. So ahad is like it's like a further elaboration. It's like he is Allah, comma, like the singular, the one Allah, or the eternal Allah. It's kind of like they're all like substitutions of the predicate Allah. That was just my initial take. I don't know if that's fair or not. But anyway, just wanted to throw it out there.
Thank you. Let's start reading verse 3 after an hour. So what's this letter? Lam.
The meme. Oh, yeah.
And then meme. So la, lam, right? So lam is a negator. It's a negation, and when you see the word lam, it means the negation of an action that has happened in the past. So whenever you see the word lam, you say that, oh, okay, this is like a past tense negator or a completed tense negator. But the interesting thing is that the verb that comes after lam is not a past tense or a perfected tense verb. It is lam, whenever it's used, is followed by a verb that looks sort of like it's in the present tense.
Falcon.
It looks sort of like it's in the present tense, but it's slightly different. So but the meaning of lam is that it's in the past tense. The negation has happened in the past tense, and it's one of the 2 ways of making a negation, or maybe there's more ways, but is one of the ways of making a negation in the past tense. So lam, not yali. What is this verb? Like 2 dots below. What does that indicate? That what consonant? Ya.
Yeah.
And then this is a lam with a line below, and ikar, yali,
Kasra.
and this dal with a stop on it. Yalid, right? Yalid is from the root walada. Yalidu is the present tense verb for he gives birth, or he gives birth, or it gives birth. Yalidu. So yalidu is the president's word if you had a u sound at the end of it. So if I say he gave birth, yalidu. She gave birth, or you gave birth, talidu. I gave birth, alidu. Okay? So you notice that there's always that u sound at the end of the verb. When lam comes to negate a past tense concept, it takes a verb form that looks like the present tense verb, except that the last vowel is ended. That's what we call the jussive mood. So we can, so it changes the verb slightly, but the meaning is that God did not give birth to anything, or God did not give birth. Any questions there?
Yeah, I have a problem with the translation.
Uh-huh.
Because as I'm reading it in Arabic, like just the Arabic, what I see is not begets and not begotten. Why does he keep inserting he in there?
Right. So he, why does it like that?
And why is the default he? You know, it could have been she, because there's no hua or hiya here.
Right.
All it says is not begets and not begotten, but he's adding he.
So in Arabic verbs, because the verbs are conjugated, you don't necessarily need a pronoun explicitly. So yalidu is the it's true. So yalidu is the normal like third person. And again in Arabic, the same thing as we've discussed before. There are two grammatical genders. He, she, like two masculine or feminine, you call them masculine, feminine. The masculine gender is defaulted to even when talking about God, despite God being non-gendered. So that's why it's ya. The first like consonant is yalidu, which is technically in the grammatical sense of masculine, like a masculine subject. But like whereas like if it was she gave birth, it would be talidu. So in Arabic, the verb doesn't, you can say the verb and you don't have to put the you don't have to put a particular like, you don't have to put a pronoun in front of it because it's assumed. So yeah, we can like in English, this guy renders it with he never gave birth. If you want to look at how, this is how what's it called? Like Thomas Cleary, who, as I said, never genders God in his translation. How does he do it? He says, "Say it is God, unique, God the eternal, not begetting nor begotten, not
That's
having
the-
an equal." So these are just,
he uses
what's that?
He uses it. Clearly uses it and then drops any pronoun after that, but he still resorts
Yeah,
to
exactly.
the non-gendered it, inanimate. You know, there's no
Yeah,
good
and
answer to it.
No,
in
I
English,
understand the defaulting to the masculine, which really is patriarchal, and the feminist in me just has to make that statement and
yeah.
object. We can move on.
Yeah. But definitely that, you know, we're constrained by language. Language historically has these aspects. And then in our translations, we can do our best to recognize, to point out the what's in line with what we know of like theology. And we could definitely translate it as Thomas Cleary had done, not begetting. But not begetting is like a present tense kind of thing. When the grammar here, because of lam, suggests it was never like God never begot in the past. It's like a past tense expression here. Lam
Well,
yalid.
men cannot have offspring anyway, so that's stating the obvious. It's totally redundant, and this kind of ayah particularly needs to be done in a more gender neutral way.
Yeah, awesome. So lam yalid wa, the and conjunction, and this symbol right here is just a in certain, like they mark it as like an end of a phrase, like it's a, but you see the la on the top of it, which means ignore it, you can read through it. So lam yalid wa lam again, and not yulada. So this is the y. Here you have you with a wow. So it lengthens the you, and then la, yulad. All right. So yulad makes it passive. Yalid is God gives birth. Yulad is God was not given birth to. In Arabic, you'll see the verbs often have that u sound to indicate the passive form. So kataba, he wrote, or they like it wrote. Kutiba. So kataba is he wrote. Kutiba is it was written. Or in the present tense, yaktub, he writes. Yuktab, it was written. So the u sound often is used as a way to make the word passive, the verb passive. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Any questions there? All right. So again, these are these look like present tense verbs. They're actually in the jussive case because it follows lam. But the meaning is like in the past, or like these verbs have completed.
And just for the this is one of those funny examples where there's an Arabic term for the jussive and there's the English word for jussive. And as a native English speaker, I have no idea of what jussive means in English. I might as well use the Arabic term because it doesn't exist in my grammatical reality. And practically, it means you just leave off in Arabic. It just means you leave off the what would be a dhamma, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yalidu would be the normal way to say it, but because it's after lam, you just say yalid. You kind of toss out the you make it stop, and that's all it means. If that means Joseph, that's fine, but it's not in my English.
And what's the Arabic term? I don't even know that.
Sami?
Yes, what's the question, sorry?
So the question is, if you say after lam, you say lam yalid. So it's بالقواعد العربية كيف نقول يلد في سكون. What do you call this in Arabic grammar? What case? It's not marfua. It's not.
This is a sukun.
No, but the after lam. So how do you? What are some of the Arabic terms? So after lam, the verb is
lam because it's a tool of shart, conditional. Hold on. فعل مضارع مجزوم.
Majzoom, that's the one.
You say majzoom, yes.
Majzoom, yeah. So I might as well call it majzoom as Joseph because I got no clue what Joseph means.
Yeah. So
which is silence or a sukun. We say, yeah, it's syntax.
Yeah.
So that verb, we can look at the verb charts. I have a verb chart out here, so we can look at that after we finish. But that verb form is, you'll see it in if then statements. Like if somebody if you do this, then this. That's when you'll see the Joseph come up, or whatever this verb form is, or after the lam. So, when we'll come across it, like various times, but we'll talk about it there.
Got it.
So let's go on to the next and the last, hopefully. So what is this? Wow, wa, la, and then the meme, walam. So, and then yakun. Yakun is the verb to be from kana, yakunu.
And kon. Kun, yes, the famous kun.
Yeah, kun fayakun, be and it is. And so in Arabic, you don't see it. Well, you don't see it as often as you might think, because in Arabic, in many sentences, you don't have to say the word be, but sometimes it does come up multiple times. And here it's in the jussive case, yakun. Yakun. So it's not, there has not been. There has not been. Marie, you had your hand up?
Yes. So the K sound, the yak, that K sound up that goes, the line that goes up. I'm trying to figure out which K sound it is in my alphabet. So is it the K the ka that comes after the ha, or is it where's the other K sound? Or is it the K sound that looks like a sorry?
This is also a letter that looks differently. Where is it? Where's my ka? Is it
It doesn't have ka.
It doesn't have ka. This is such a bad chart.
Blame the Guardian. Where does the Guardian get their sources?
Because there's two K sounds.
Okay, here.
Yeah, it's ka.
Here you have the ka.
There it is. Yeah.
So at the
which one is it?
So
The
Qaf
one
is,
without the dots.
yeah, so qaf, this is a Q sound, qaf with the dots, but here is the kaf, the normal K sound, and
Okay.
it does look very differently. Isolated, it looks like a lam with a little S sound,
Okay.
like a
So
little S.
it's that one that we're
Yeah,
looking.
but
Okay.
when it's connected, it looks very
Okay.
different. It's like this, like a big.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense now. I see it now. That makes sense. Okay.
And
All right.
correcting the issue in the last chart, the ha isolated. This is a teardrop shape of the ha, and then we saw that here. So yeah, this is a kaf.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I was just making sure. It's just so hard when they're all connected.
And thank you for
Totally.
actually continue with the questions, because I think it will help other people. Thank you, Marie.
Yeah. So if you see it here, walam, and look at how it's written here. It's like written as this really nice, like really extended big S looking thing. So this is also a kaf.
But in the next one, go for one. It's a more recognizable kaf.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's just stylistic differences. This is one way of writing it within a sentence. So lam yakun, and then this is lahu. So this is a lam, and this is a ha. And the lam has this doubling on it. Why is there a doubling on the lam here? The reason is lahu is a way of saying, so we talked about the preposition li to somebody. If I give it, like, remember, alhamdulillah, praise is to God. When the li joins with a masculine pronoun, hu, you don't say lihu, it becomes lahu. So to God, so it's saying to God, lahu. Now the reason it's doubled here is because the lahu follows this noon sound. And what happens is when a noon is followed by a lam, the noon merges into that lam.
Idgham. It's called idgham.
Yeah, it merges into that lam, and you lose the noon sound and you double on the lam. So normally you'd read lam yakun lahu, but it merges together, so it's lam yakul lahu. And here you see it like you see this ending on the noon, but then here when you see the doubling, it's hard to parse because you're like, oh, you're ending on the noon here, and then there's a double sound. What's the vowel that comes before it? It means that you ignore the noon and you double it into the lam. Lam yakul lahu.
That's only in the tajweed, in the Quran. That's only, not in the normal, when you talk. In the
Not
daily
in
talk, you
normal.
don't need to do such. Yeah, this is only in the Quran, in the tajweed section, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so like not every, I guess you can say lam yakun lahu, and that's fine here. Here in the Uthmani script, you'll see that they mark it out by, they don't mark a stop on the noon. The noon seems like empty here because it's saying ignore it, and then you see the lam with the doubling, lam yakul lahu, and it has this little wow here to express the extending of the hu sound here. Okay.
Here with the kun, is that extended kaf also another one of those examples of artistic license, so to
This
speak?
here?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Artistic license.
Those calligraphers just like to go to town.
Yeah. So
they gotta have fun too, right?
Yeah, the calligraphers like to have fun.
So altogether, it means there has never been to him or to God. There has never been to God what? That's the next word. Kufu'an. So this is a kaf, ku, fu. A loop with one dot above is the fa sound with the u sound, kufu, and the wow with two lines above indicate nunation. Kufu one.
Why would they not have the noon at the end and they have that? It sounds like an N, right? At the end, the
Yes,
sound.
exactly.
Kufuwan.
So the word is kufua, okay? Now, when, like, like when you have a predicate after the expressed word kana, or the verb to be, it takes, so remember when we talked about predicates before, like when it's a predicate of the sentence, it goes in the indefinite. And the indefinite is marked by that nunation at the end, the doubling of the sign, which indicates the end sound at the end. So kufu one. Now, why is it an but not a un? Mary?
Yes. Are you asking me?
Oh no, no, I was asking if you had a question.
Oh, no, no, no. I don't know why my hand's still up. Can you,
Oh, okay.
am I supposed to take it down or?
No worries, no worries. I can put it down here, not a problem. So kufu an. So there's a certain grammatical points to think about. So because it's a predicate of the verb to be, it's in the indefinite. There is not to God any equivalent. Kufuan is like a equivalent or a partner or a equal. It would be in the indefinite. Now, why is it an and not un? Why is it end with a double an sound? The reason is that when the predicate follows the word, like when you explicitly say the word be, in those cases, the predicate that follows is in the accusative case. We talked about the accusative case before. That's often the object, the direct object. It has the ah sound. So here you have the word in the accusative case, kufuwan. And you'll see this alif afterwards, this alif right here. So why is there an alif afterwards? In Arabic, when there is a double like when the fatha, the ah sound is nunated, you have this alif afterwards, so that when you end on that word, rather than dropping off the last vowel, you would have you end with a ah sound. So if you were to end on this word, you would read it as kufuwa, kufuwa. So maybe I hadn't prepared with regards to explaining this. This is a little complicated, but normally, as you've seen here, when you end on a word with nunation, you just drop the nunation and you drop the vowel. Except in the case of the nunation being with a fatha, with an an. In that case, when you end on that word, you have this vowel at the end, kufuwa. But here we're not ending on the word. We just we're continuing on. So we do pronounce the noon, kufuwan. Any questions there?
Kufuwan, we say Adnan. Kufuwan, this is khabar of yakun. So
exactly.
So the khabar is always has this fatha because this is a syntax. The position of kufuwan, yeah, but it's a little bit advanced. It's a little bit advanced.
So like direct objects
Yes.
have the accusative case, which is the ah. And in Arabic, when you do use the word, you don't see the word be often, but when you do see it, like here you see the verb be. Then the what comes after it is in the accusative case, and has the ah sound at the end of it. Okay, so lam yakul lahu kufuwan, there has never been to him an equal. And then you have this word, ahadun, right? What is this ahadun? Ahadun, remember we said that ahadun has a sense of anybody. And look at the end of ahadun, it's in the u case. So it's the subject of the sentence. So if you are to parse this, the subject of the sentence is actually the last word of the sentence. So what it is saying is that, and no one has been to him or to God a partner.
Yes.
No one or anyone has not been to him a partner. Okay, that's how you parse this last sentence. Anyone, ahadun, has not been, lam yakul, to God a partner. Or especially or you can render it, no one has been a partner to God. Does that make sense a little bit? Any questions?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I have to go. I just want to say thank you and goodbye to everyone.
No, my pleasure. It's we set out 2 hours for this, and yeah, we might not have thought 4 verses would take so long, but I so appreciate you joining.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
It's a rate of half an hour per verse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You could,
but I hope
like I
No,
say,
no,
people
it's-
have written books about this. You know, it's
Q&A,
pretty deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more of a grammar lesson in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, it might be good at this point just to go back and just practice the basic reading, because now you have a lot more context, maybe a little bit more, meat on the bones, more or less, and just go back to a standard reading. I think you saw I mean, these are all things you could find yourself. I went on the internet and found something like a few YouTube examples of people reading it, and 1 or 2 where they're breaking it down like slowly, and you could listen to it and just try to repeat after people. And I think it has more meaning after you have this understanding. Right? It's you go back and forth. You read it without much comprehension, then you get more comprehension, and then you go back and just read it. It's a cycle sort of thing, I think.
So would anyone want to just read through what we've read?
Shaheen, you want to take a try?
Sure. Just the Arabic?
Just the Arabic.
Okay. قل هو الله الأحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anyone else want to try?
And if somebody wants to try just one line, we could read the line first, and then you could try to repeat it.
I'll actually have to leave as well. So
Okay.
this was really great, by the way. I'm really glad I came. And I'll be here for the Quran discussion next week. All right then.
Wonderful. See you.
Stay cool if you can.
I'm just not going to leave the house, so that's going to be a simple solution.
Okay.
All right then. Bye.
Good habits. See you.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about verbs. I pulled this up. This is just like a conjugation chart from the verb walada, to bear. And you see that they have it in the four different verb tenses. One is the present tense, the past tense, which is actually a completed tense, the subjunctive, and then the jussive, whatever those mean. So present tense, we get a sense of past tense. Subjunctive, you use it is that I go, or and it can be used sort of like I want that you do this. That is where you would use the subjunctive. And then jussive after lam, or if then sentences. So if this, then that, you would use the jussive in that case. And we talked about the different. So if you read through, in the present tense, we talked about the verb walada, alidu, I bear, talidu, you bear, and then talidina, when you're talking to a female, to a woman, yalidu, he bears, or he gives birth, talidu, she gives birth, right? And then the only difference is the subjunctive tense is that instead of alidu, it becomes alida. Pretty simple there. Alida, talida, yalida, talida. That's in the singular. And then the jussive tense, the last vowel is dropped. Alid, talid, yalid, talid. So those are when we're looking at at least just singular verbs. Whereas the past tense, walattu, walatta, walatti. So these are it can be complicated, but again, we just take it step by step.
Yes, with a cup of water and 2 Panadols.
Yeah, you need a little. It is a little complicated, but I hope if we take the verb to be, let's see.
To be or not to be, this is the question.
Hannah. So in the present tense, akunu, I am, akunu. Takunu, when you're speaking to or in the, for he is yakunu, she is takunu. And then if you're making it plural, well, for us, we are nakunu. And then when you make it plural, takunun, takununa, okay? And then when you see the in the past tense, it becomes kuntu, I was, or I have been. Kunta, you have been. Kunti, when you're speaking to like a girl, you have been. Kana, he was. Kanat, she was. So the past tense verbs look slightly different from the present tense, but then the subjunctive tense looks like the present tense, except with the a sound at the end. Akuna, so
Akuna Matata.
akuna, takuna, takuna, nakuna. And then lastly, the jussive, which comes after lam, and which comes in if then sentences. It's a shorter akun, takun. Now, in Surah Ikhlas, we saw the word yakun. There is also a variation of this verb, yaku. You'll see that sometimes in the Quran, yaku, without the noon at the end, but it means the same thing. So any big questions after that?
No, but I'm sure I've not assimilated it all.
Oh. All right.
Sorry, Kara.
Kara?
No, I just have a quick question. I don't remember if we addressed it or not, but I'm wondering if this has to do with when you're reading the Quran and at the end of each ayah, you drop the last syllable or whatever, if you're continuing to read into the next one. And then on the last line, when you're finished reading, you read the full word at the end. Do you know what I mean? So instead of, make it my.
I think you say the syllable, but not the punctuation or the vowel.
Yeah, like, so do you know what I mean? Hang on, let me just.
No worries.
Like
okay,
you say ahad.
You
say ahad, but not dun.
Yeah, exactly. So if the phrase was like I just opened it up, so lahum min nasirina, if I was finishing it, I'd say the a at the end, but if I was continuing on, it would just be nasirin, and then I'd go into the next thing.
Yeah, so that if you're stopping at that, you would drop that last vowel, so nasirin, and then you'd have a pause, and then you can continue the word, with the next sentence. If you are to continue on, that's where you express the vowel. So does that make sense, Kara?
No, I'm not sure. I guess the way that I've been taught was when I continue reading it, then I drop the end sound, like the A, and I keep reading. So it would be like Lahumin Nasarin, Alam Tara Aladina, and that you just go on and you're dropping that last one. But then when I'm finishing, like let's say I wanted to stop reading there, then I would say Nasarina and then leave it and be done.
No,
is it the other way around? I don't know. Yeah. But I wondered if that had to do with tenses or not. No.
Kara, could you try it with these two lines of Qul Huwallahu Ahad? What you mean?
So
when you end Sarah, when you end the reciting, that's it. You like turning off the engine. That's it. There's no more any movement in the tongue or the mouth. That's it. Finish. Turn off the engine.
Yeah. So maybe Kara, maybe it's the opposite of what you said. Like when you do stop on it, that's when you drop the vowel. And if you are to continue on with it, you express the vowel. So here, in this verse, if I were to read through, like if I were to read through without stopping, I would say, Qul huwallahu ahadunillahu samadu lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad.
You're stopping, you don't say the ahadu?
What's that?
So you were, oh no, you always drop that UN on the end, don't you?
I would drop the UN at the end. But I might have, like when I recited, I might have said, Lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. It's still like a little like shaking of the D sound because you stop on it, but you would drop the un sound. And then you were talking about another chapter. Were you talking about Alam Tara Kaifa Fa'ala?
Well, no, I was just picking, like just reading randomly from anywhere, but like go back. So for instance, the part of what I was trying to learn was one of the some of the verses that you brought up in one of the chat classes. From chapter 30. So if you're saying Fasubhana Allahi hina tumsuna wa hina tusbihun, and then you keep on going, because you're dropping that A, right? And then Wallahu alhamdu fi al-samawati wal ardi wa aishin wa hina tutharun. So I've been dropping the A's as long as I keep going, but then adding it on at the end. And that was what my person who's in Pakistan was also saying I should do. But maybe I got it completely wrong. Or maybe a stylistic thing. I don't know.
So like if you are to stop at these, فَسُبْحَانَ hina tumsuna wa hina tusbihun, you drop the sound at the end, tusbihun. And then you can pause there and then start again. وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَعَشِيًّا وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ. And stop there. And that sort of brings out, you'll see that the Quran is so dependent on, like it has such rhyme throughout the chapters, and dropping the vowel at the end of the verse brings out that rhyme.
Okay.
So if, and at the end of a passage, if you're stopping, you would do the same. You'd stop and drop the last vowel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. So yeah, with regards to Ikhlas, you may have noticed there's definitely that rhyme throughout it. So many of the chapters have a consistent rhyme, and it could be for pages. Like every verse ends with the same rhyme. So
Adnan, where did you learn Hebrew? When and where?
Personal interest, and there I've done a little bit of biblical Hebrew.
Biblical Hebrew. This is what did you learn?
There's a YouTube there's something on YouTube that I follow that teaches biblical Hebrew, and
so by yourself. I thought in a school or something. Oh my.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And
yeah,
it's not difficult actually if you know Arabic very well. Hebrew is a Semitic language, it's a sub-branch. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting. It's like when I was learning Hebrew, I'm like, there's some things in Arabic that are more complex, like plurals are more complex in Arabic. In Hebrew, you just have im or ot at the end of
Elohim.
In Arabic, you have the broken plurals. But there's some things in Hebrew that are more complex, such as like the word changes if it's in the construct. If it's like house of somebody versus the house, al-bayt or bait, something like the word changes. So there's some things that are more complex, and then there's some things that you're like, that is so weird, and you see it in both Arabic and Hebrew, and you're like, where does that come from? Like when you have when you're numbering an Arabic term, like when you say like there's seven of this, right? If it's like a masculine noun, if it's a masculine noun, the number term is feminine, and if it's a feminine noun, the number term is masculine. Like, what the? And it's in both Arabic and Hebrew.
Like the many qitat, 8 cats.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, that is so weird, but yeah.
Numbers in Arabic.
But it's not difficult because you have 9,000 roots in the Hebrew, while in Arabic there is a debate. It can reach to millions. But it's not difficult, the Hebrew.
Yeah. And it's quite fascinating when.
Sorry, Harun, you said something?
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying. I just thought that like numbers in Arabic are like the most tedious lesson that I always forget. But I don't know why. It's just like, especially the longer the number, like, I don't know. It was like the most irritating lesson that I always like. I can never remember.
Yeah, for real. And I just learned that there are sometimes 2 different plurals that you can use for Arabic, like
we have
shuhur, like shahar is a month, shuhur versus ashhur. It's 2 different plurals.
Only 10% of the words they have follow a law, so there's a grammar. 10% only. The rest you just use the blockchain.
The blockchain.
So you unfortunately, the plural is hard. So you just to memorize. 10%, 15% has a follow a law. Makes it hard. I don't know who's more harder, Mandarin, Chinese, or Arabic. But I'm really enjoying the room here. I'm so impressed. from Adnan, how he's teaching, and Kevin knowledge, and Shaheen, and all of you guys. I'm really impressed because Quran is hard for beginners. How about, so I'm very impressed, really.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining. We can.
And thanks for your contributions. Please come back.
Most definitely. I like it here. It's very relaxing. I returned back 30 years, and it was one of my favorite classes. Yes, the Arabic language, and of course.
Wow. Well, welcome. What time is it? What time
It's
is it?
Almost 3.
3 a.m.
Oh,
and we
sorry,
say
12 o'clock for you.
Wow.
we say always in our tradition, if you are good in your mother language, you can be good in any other language. So if you know how the construction of your mother language very well, nothing will be that much difficult for you. And
Samir, it's the opposite for me. I cannot read or write my mother language.
the
But
mother
I
language.
in English.
Yeah, I understand. But it takes practice and training.
Yeah. Every language is complex in a way. Not like Arabic initially, like when I was a kid, Arabic was like so difficult. And now reading the Quran, it's like it feels more natural. But every language has its complexities, and it but then it just
But definitely you learn it from younger age. Definitely the knowledge that you have is very in much more younger age. Yeah, in details. Yeah, mashallah, Adnan. Yeah, I'm impressed. I speak Spanish very good, and I lived in Spain, so I love the influence of the Arabic in the Spanish. Around 4,000 Arabic words, and because of 800 years of influence, such a big kingdom there. So, and I love it. It makes the Spanish language much more a little bit easier for me.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Very cool. Well, thank you all. I guess we can like officially end. There's around 12. Kevin, were you still recording?
Yes, unfortunately, I should have stopped it before. Let me stop it now.
No worries.